Hi, I'm back again talking a little bit more about the 60-degree diamonds, and I'm going to show you some more about how to put the star block together. So last time we put the little side pieces in for the background. This time I'm going to show you how to cut and insert the corner pieces so that you could end up with a nice 16-inch block, because we're working with 4.5-inch wide pieces. So this we did last time, so that if you remember that. And we could do other things with that shape. We didn't just have to make them into a star, but to be able to make the star block, we need some corners to go in to the block here. So because we've been working with 4.5-inch wide strips, as I had previously mentioned, we need to have these that are going to be 4.5 inches wide. We cut our diamonds from 4.5 inches wide. So that's kind of all convenient that everything works together. But they're not the same length. So when we cut the sides, we cut them 8.5 inches. It's fairly specific with all this sort of thing. When we're going to be making these side bits, they're a little bit different, and because we've got a little bit of an overlap on an angled point here, we need to be able to allow for that. So we're just allowing 1/4 inch extra, so we're going to cut them 8 3/4 inches. So I've cut mine already, 4.5 inches wide, 8 3/4 inches long. So I need to cut my angle so that I can fit everything in around my diamonds. So when we were cutting this background shape here, we used the 30-degree line, and we're going to use that one again because again it's more conveniently placed on the ruler. So this time I'm going to lay the 30-degree line along that edge, and it doesn't come quite to the point of my ruler, so I need to make sure that where the line intersects with the edge of the ruler, that sits with the point of the fabric, because we're cutting all that way up, and I'm lining my 30-degree line up here with that edge of that fabric there. So I've got all four corner pieces together here, just so that you know what I'm cutting through. I've got them in pairs, so I've got one up the right way and one upside down, and then I've got one the right way and upside down, so that you've got two pairs, because they end up being two pairs in the corners. So 30 degrees there, and I'm just going to cut that. It should go right through the point of the fabric. And there we've got a very nice little corner there. And so now we've got our pieces to put in for our corners. So this one is going to come over here, and this one up the right way is going to come and sit in here. And same with these ones over here. We're going to have those sitting there because we're going to have another star point in there. And I've got them upside down because that's what I do. Okay. So I'm just going to show you how to set in one corner. It's very similar to how we put this one in. You need to pop one more diamond onto this piece here now. So with the same sort of joining, so I've already gone ahead and I've marked my little marks. So this should line up. If you've still got your little rabbit ear corners sticking out there, this should line up there. It should sit along the edge here. And I've already done my little mark so that I've got my intersect point here, because we want to stop sewing at that intersect point there. I've actually already popped this one on here so that you can see we're going to end up with a shape that looks a bit like this. Slightly weird, but however, exactly what we need. So I'm just going to sew now. So I'm going to start sewing at the intersect and finish coming through. That should cross over at the 1/4 inch point there. So start right on that intersect and then just stitch right down, right across the point. Because we'd pressed the seams open on the previous seam, it's sitting quite flat. And I'm just going to press that seam. Again, I'm going to press it open. So where we've got a little bit of bulk here, that's okay. Because we pressed the seam open, it's not too bulky. It's going to sit quite well just there. And we've got a little gap in our seam here because we didn't come right through. We just stopped where it intersected. So I'll press that seam open. And that's sitting really nicely. Got a little gap in our seam just there, and I've just got a thread that's distracting me. So we've got a little gap in our seam right there, so that's really good. We're very happy to have that because we now need to pop this corner in here. So I'm going to suggest that we put It doesn't really matter which one you do first, one or other. Everything should fit pretty much exactly. So if we flip that point back, we should have that correct intersect area there, and this should match at this end here. So if you wanted to pop something in to hold that out of your way, it's not a bad idea. And we're just going to start sewing here and stitch all the way through out to there. And everything should fit together. And again, I'm just going to press that. I do find it works so much better if you press everything as you go. It really does help things sit nicely together. So I'm not trying to press the point where we were stitching to particularly, but just the majority of the seam. And now I've just got this one line left to do here. So if we bring that over, that should all sit really nicely. This point up here should be matching at this end. It should be intersecting beautifully at this end here. So we can start at the edge here. Everything matches at the edge up here. Just have it sitting nicely. Stop at your little intersect point, because you've learnt where that is on your machine now. Handy little thing to know. There the machine stops sewing. And again, I'm just going to press, again from the wrong side, and just press that over gently. And then you can press the point and it should all just sit down really nicely for you. You can come over. So I've got that corner sitting in beautifully, everything's sitting really nicely. So that's about as far as I can go on that particular segment at the moment. I now need to make this segment the same as that one, so I'm going to go ahead and put that corner in exactly the same way. So the opposite corners, and then I'll come back and show you how we assemble the block and put the last two corners in as well. So I've got my sections together. I've got a corner in, a side in, a corner in, a side in, so they're opposites now. It's looking quite bizarre, however it's coming together. So now we need to join these two together so that we've ended up again with that same sort of corner to put our last two corners in. So this just goes together like this. We do need to remember to have our little markers at the beginning and the end, both ends of this, because it's a different diamond at that end, and we need to make sure that the center is going to meet so that we've got a nice matching point where possible in the center there. So it may be worth your while putting a pin just in there to hold that, or a clip, because pins attack you. Otherwise we're going to start at the intersect. I've already done the markings, and we're going to stop at the intersect down here, and we just want to make sure that our point is going to match in the center there. So it's all looking pretty good to me. So I'm going to just sew that seam, and then we can press that and put our corners in. I just like to keep an eye on this center point if I can. Just stop at the intersect place, little back stitch, cut the threads, and now I need to bring the iron over again. I'm pretty happy with that. It's probably not the absolute best point I've ever done, but it's pretty good. So it is a little bit bulky in the center. I'm definitely going to press these seams open, but because we've been pressing them flat, it's not too bad in there. Just one of my seams over. So now we have this most peculiar shaped block, but isn't it exciting because we know what to do with it now. We've got these last two bits to put in exactly the same way we put these in. We can go along one edge there and along one edge there and flip it round and sew the other. So I'll go ahead and do that and I can show you the finished block when I've finished. So I've gone ahead and I've put my corners in here and I've almost finished this one. I just thought I'd leave that last seam and just show you how that works at the point of the star there, just so that you get that bit sorted. So I've gone ahead, I've done this seam, the same as we've done before, and this is just the same except that we've just got to make sure we get that point right at that end. So what's going to happen here, it's easier from this side, is we've got it sitting so that our intersect is working well just in this corner here, and this one here, this point of the background has to sit out so that where it overlaps, that intersect again is 1/4 of an inch, which means covering right over the stitch point that we've already done there. So I think we can go ahead and stitch. So I'm going to start from here and stitch all the way through, and that should be forming a little rabbit ear out there, and that should then give you a nice point with a seam allowance so that you can sew it into something else. So make sure that's sitting out on where it intersects is 1/4 of an inch. Everything else should fit. Just do be aware some of the line seams that or edges of fabric we're working with are cut on an angle, so they're not with the grain of the fabric, which makes them a little bit stretchy. So you have to be a little bit careful not to stretch things as you go. Everything should just fit. Sometimes you've got to just kind of pat it into place, but it should all fit with just a little bit of patting without any major things. So I'll just press that and then you can see how that corner's sitting up there. So I've been pressing the background into the diamonds each time. I find that it sits, generally speaking, better that way, and you can get that point down nicely there. And then I can turn it over and we've done a very nice star here. So the part I was just showing you, you want it so that that overlaps just a little bit at that point, so that you've got 1/4 of an inch seam allowance where the point comes in. So I've got the same thing sitting down here, so that when we sew that block into a quilt or whatever we're making it into, we've got our 1/4 inch seam allowance without chopping our points off. These points don't come to the edge because it's the 6-pointed star. It doesn't all fit exactly in that way. However, it is a star whichever way you look at it. It's kind of fun. We now know how to make a block. The block is measuring 16.5 inches, which it was supposed to do, so that's even more exciting. And so you can go ahead, you can make things like that. As I mentioned before, some of the pieces could be some of your 4 patches in there, or there's lots of other things you could go on and make bigger stars. I showed you in the last one that you could make columns with different things going on and zigzaggy type of quilts. So it's not just for a star, but a 60-degree diamond is definitely a girl's best friend. Take a little bit of care when you're sewing them, but they work out really nicely for you. Thank you.